Peace and Black Power family. Harlem educator, author, and activist, the Black Liberation Coach, Brother Agyei Tyehimba. Family, we want to welcome you to Harlem Liberation School, where we teach Black people how to wake up, clean up, and stand up. Today, we're going to be briefly addressing this question: what is the goal of scholarship? And in addition to that, we're going to give you um, a common mistake that scholars and researchers often make that we want to help you prevent from making. All right. First, let's take a little look at this and we'll be right back.
The greatest injustice is done to my people is done by the way of infection. Killing us slowly, erasing our history, death by the way of deception. God, do you know?
God, do you know what you are? God, do you know what you are?
Goddess, do you know?
Goddess, do you know what you are? Goddess, do you know what
We are back, family. Welcoming you again to Harlem Liberation School. So we said today that we're going to be talking about answering the question, what is the goal of scholarship? Very important question. Very important thing that we understand. Because when you go on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of people with Africana studies or proclaiming to teach Africana studies or Black power studies or Black male studies or gender studies or whatever type of studies, and to be calling themselves scholars. And it's very important that we understand what the goal of scholarship is so that we produce fine and interrogative and new, right, and relevant scholarship. So if we were to answer that, I would say, I'm putting up on the screen so you can follow with me. The goal of scholarship is to expand our knowledge in a particular field of study through research, analysis, or critical thinking. That's pretty fair enough, pretty straightforward. And then we can go on to say that scholarship, its goal, its objective, is to contribute new insights, new perspectives, and new ideas that can add to the already existing body of knowledge, right? And understanding in a given discipline. That's why we call it research, right? You're adding to that. There's already this deep and wide pool of knowledge and scholarship, and your scholarship is supposed to add to that in a meaningful and refreshing way. Now, the thing that I wanted to discuss briefly is one of the things that I think often, especially you see this in terms of social media scholarship, which you'll often see people are into feminism, so they do all this study on feminism. Maybe let's say they're talking about discrepancy between um, the proportion of domestic violence cases that are perpetrated against women versus men. So they're doing all that research around that particular topic, right? Or some type of feminist theme, you know? And so what happens is they're in a debate, a formal debate on the street corner, in an informal debate at the family get together or the cookout, and somebody challenges them in a way they're unprepared for because all they've studied is their particular niche, their particular piece of scholarship and research, right? So what's the thing I'm trying to get us to make sure we do not do when we do our own research and scholarship? When we do scholarship, when we do research, it is not simply, we don't go to books and magazine articles and films just to support what we already believe, family. Of course, you have to get information to support what you believe, to show that what you believe is valid and plausible. But what we see in social media often is people are just going to get information. It's almost like they're going right through Google, they're looking up stuff real quick, getting these little facts, little trivia points to support their particular point of view. And the problem with that is, I think, should be obvious. Salute back to brother Bob Cosmic, who says salute to Harlem Liberation School. We give the brother a salute right back. Very big supporter of Harlem Liberation School. We appreciate that. Here's the problem. I'm a Black nationalist. So let's say that I say I'm a scholar of Black nationalism. That means I don't just read the books that are favorable to Black nationalism. I'm not just studying to know the good virtues, let's say, of Black nationalism, or all of the great accomplishments of Black nationalist leaders, right? It means that I'm trying to look at just about every conceivable thing in that area so that I can speak meaningfully to Black nationalism from a variety of viewpoints. This means if I say I'm a scholar of Black nationalism, I'm supposed to not just read Black nationalist literature and scholarship, I'm supposed to read scholarship or literature by people who oppose Black nationalism, people who say Black nationalism is a joke. Why? Because I'm supposed to be able to anticipate anything that people would say that opposes Black nationalism. But I can't do that if all I'm doing in my study and research is trying to find stuff that supports what I believe. This is why I say scholarship, this is a very big mistake I often see people make. When you're doing real scholarship, you have to be able to speak for the people or the school of thought that goes against your school of thought. So all of you who say you're nationalists and you're scholars, you should be reading the stuff that our enemies write about nationalism. Why? Because oftentimes your critics are the people who bring to light your soft spots, the areas where you're weak, the areas, the things you don't like to think about, the critiques, the critical stuff is going to come from your enemy. So you got to read what the enemy says about nationalism. You should be able to tell, a nationalist should be able to tell you the shortcomings of nationalism. It should be able to tell you the deficiencies of nationalism. It should be able to tell you the areas of human activity that nationalism doesn't address. It should be able to tell you we're in the 21st century, but a lot of nationalists have not grown and evolved their ideology to address common day issues that were not as prevalent in the 60s or the 50s or 40s, right? Okay. If you can't do that, then you're not a scholar. And see, this is what I'm trying to get people to see. You have to not just your reading, not just to support what you already believe. A real scholar should be able to critique his own belief. Why? Because you can honestly and objectively critique what you already believe. That means you can grow and evolve. You're going to see some deficiencies in your scholarship that you need to brush up on. You're going to see some area. I'm good in 20th century nationalism, but let's say my 19th century nationalism knowledge is a little short, right? Sketchy. So now you say, okay, I'm going to go now read, right, some of our 19th century literature so I can brush up on what nationalists in the 19th century were talking about. And I can even compare and contrast what 19th century Black nationalism was and was trying to do versus what 20th century Black nationalism was and was trying to do. I should be able to identify some of the main spokespeople or opponents of Black nationalism, and I should be able to critique them. So I don't just go around bigging up Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and Sasha Shakur. Of course, I big them up. I support them. I agree with them on most things. However, if I were to debate someone who's an opponent of Black nationalism, I would be able to anticipate every one of their comments. Why? Because I am very well aware and informed of the places where Black nationalism is a little sketchy, right? The soft spots. And so because I'm aware of that, I can study more in different areas, right? And that's where you're going to see the difference between um a real scholar or real scholarship versus the stuff that's not too tight. It's going to be full of a bunch of conjecture, a bunch of old wives' tales, anecdotes that you can't prove, and it's going to be very narrowly focused on. This is why Black nationalism is great, which of course I believe, but a scholar is getting to the root of it. You want to be able to compare and contrast. If you're into something and you're a scholar of it, you should know what the enemies of your ideology, of your organization, of your people believe about you, so that you can contrast it, right? So that you can check it, so that you can already say, I already know what you're going to say about this, and you have an answer for that. Or else your opponents and your enemies will catch you off guard. But more importantly, you won't be able to raise the critical crucial questions of the day. You won't be able to bring new scholarship to the community. You're going to be just recycle, like a lot of people on YouTube do, recycle what our most prominent proponents or adherents of Black nationalism said. And of course, I can tell you what Asada said, what Malcolm said, what Garvey said. That's all great. But at some point, we want to know, what do you say? What do you think, based on your lived experience and your study, right, and your observation? What are your independent views? Because some of your independent views may contrast with some of the views of the greats that we think of. Why? Because we live in a different time, right? So it's very important that you be able to do that. And I'm going to challenge those who are watching the show, who will watch the later recorded version. Whatever it is you say you are a scholar of, and since this is Harlem Liberation School, it would be stuff like socialism, right? Nationalism, Marxism, critical race theory, all these different things you might be somewhat aware of and maybe a scholar on. But you're not truly the best scholar if all you know is about your particular ideology or organizational formation. You must be able to intelligently interrogate that which you believe, that which you support. And you should be the worst critic. So as a nationalist, I should be the worst critic of Black nationalism. It shouldn't be no white person or some European somewhere else or whoever attacking nationalism more than me. And when I say attacking it, I don't mean attacking it from the vantage point of tearing it down. I mean intellectually investigating and interrogating it so that I can say that nobody should be able to out nationalist me if I say I'm a scholar of nationalism. Very important, family. I'm going to end. I'm not going to belabor the point. Bob Cosmic has put a lot of important comments I want to show. He says if we don't study our enemies, we're going to get got from the get-go. That's correct. And a lot of alliteration with the G's. That one's like a poem right there. Bob Cosmic says, even the dark and ignorant have a story, so I always incline my ear with understanding and pick and choose and refuse what applies and what doesn't. Right. That's very, very wise. And then Bob Cosmic says, if you're not comparing and contrasting, you're not growing. That's absolutely right. Thank you for that, Bob Cosmic. Thank you for your ongoing support. And I just want to remind those of you watching to please subscribe to our channel. We are at about 988 subscribers. We're trying to reach that 1,000 mark. Help us get there, family. Subscribe if you have not already. And please give a call, shoot out an email or whatever, inbox this to one of your friends and let them know, man, you need to check out Harlem Liberation School. With that said, family, we want to thank you for watching and have a beautiful, beautiful evening. Peace and Black power.